I buy and sell things for a living, and some of the things that I buy and sell frequently are postcards. But a lot of people are not aware that there are some incredibly valuable postcards out there. And even though I've never done this type of a video and don't really have plans to again, we're kind of in between some things. I've sold some stuff, but we also haven't had anything come in. We've got some stuff coming in the next couple of days, so I didn't really have things I wanted to show. So I decided today I was going to go through somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 postcards that have sold on eBay in the last 90 days. These are not all the most valuable ones, but I tried to give you a variety to give you an idea of what to look for. So first off, today we're going to look at this. This is Ty Cobb. Baseball player, early 1900s. It is a postcard. If we click through here, you'll see here's the back of the postcard. And it says Detroit, Michigan, 1907. This thing is graded, but it's got a low grading. Like a 9 or a 10 would be the best. This is a 4, so it's pretty poor shape. And you can even see if you zoom in here, this line here and this line there, as well as the bottom, I'm assuming would have them. You can't see as well, but that shows that this has been in an old postcard album at one point in time, and it was slipped through the paper, and you have some wear and some condition issues because of that. Now, we don't know the exact price because of the mark through. That means that they accepted a best offer under this. How much under, I'm not sure, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this thing sold for thousands of dollars. We'll show a couple here, sports-related ones. If you look up postcard and you look at the ones that have sold in the last 90 days, the highest ones, the majority of the ones themes you're going to find are sports cards. Baseball is probably the one that you're going to see the most. Those early baseball days is pretty incredible. This is a postcard that we're looking at right now, but it is a longer one than typical. Really, this is almost twice the length that a typical postcard would be. And what you're seeing here is a real photo series, a real photograph, printed in Britain, but you are looking at the largest vessel and the largest floating crane in the world. This is the White Star Titanic. This thing, again, we don't know exactly because it didn't sell for this exact price, but it sold for likely thousands of dollars. We don't know exactly how much, but the Titanic, everyone has heard of that. Here is a postcard of Elvis, and this one is rare because it's not just Elvis. It is actually signed on the back. You can see it's written, it's typed here or printed, Elvis Presley, and it says sincerely Elvis Presley on the back. Now, I don't know if they have any sort of information on provenance or how they came into possession of this, but it's basically Elvis in his military regalia, and it is a postcard sold for $5,500. So, already you might be thinking, wow, my grandparents have some old postcards, or I need to go look. I know somebody who I've got some in the attic or in a back closet. You should go in and take a look. You would be surprised how many things like this are really out there. I come across stuff all the time at antique stores, estate sales, yard sales all the time. Here's another example. This is actually a postcard, but it's set up to look like a baseball card. Again, this has been slabbed and graded, but I just got a good rate, like a 2. It says good, but that's not really a very good rating. Postcard unposted, not written on. If you can come across any postcards of baseball players from, I would say, the 1930s or earlier, but the older the better, you stand a chance of having something quite valuable. And there's even condition issues at the bottom if I zoom in. Look at this wrinkling here. Look at all of this. There's even water. There's even some condition issues on the corner. Kind of grainy. The corners are rounded. It's not great, folks. And yet, it had 63 bids, $3,351. Now we're getting into some older ones. Those were postcards. These would be more considered postal cards. So this is pre-19... 14 pre-1907. On the back, we don't have a divider at all. So you don't have a place where a person writes a message and puts where they address it to. It's all just one blank back. You can see someone has written, they've written in ink, and you've got multiple stamps here and multiple cancellations. But there's 1879, that's pretty darn old. But the reason that this is valuable is because it's coming from China. Hong Kong and China, postcards and things, really early ones, even in the 1800s, sell regularly for really, really good money. This one had 54 bids, sold for $3,050. Is a postcard, not even an old one, 1960. I mean, relatively old, but not antique by any stretch. Why did this bring thousands of dollars? Well, because it was typed up and sent by Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He was a journalist, he was a writer, and he was very popular, and his stuff is quite collectible. So you've got an interesting personal message sent to somebody, a friend perhaps, and up here, HST, Big Sur, California, which is where he lived. Just looking at the front of this and this, you could just flip through this in a book and not even know, not even pay attention. So things like this can sometimes slip through, but these types of things are out there. Here is a postcard of it says the Western Ontario Juvenile District, but this is, a hockey postcard. Looks like a real photograph or based on a real photograph of an actual team from 1916 to 1917. This is before the NHL even started. Obviously, hockey enormously popular in Canada, and so this is what you have. This one postcard sold for $3,000. Here's another one featuring a sports team, but in this case, baseball again. You can see all of these younger men all sitting together, maybe a coach or two up here, some people in the background. It's just a bunch of guys playing, on a baseball team. But it's a real photo postcard. This is, and it's saying Dwight Eisenhower. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, one of our presidents, must be one of these players. I don't know which one. Maybe right here. Because as I'm looking, yeah, I guess maybe this gentleman. So how did they know that was Eisenhower? I have no idea. But that's pretty amazing. Somebody paid not exactly $2,500, but did pay a lot of money for that postcard. Here's one that did sell for this price. The Carey Tower, Hope Manning University. Now, the front of it, not all that interesting. It's a postcard with some condition issues here of Providence, Rhode Island, Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. But on the back, the message apparently is written by H.P. Lovecraft, who was a very popular, kind of a sci-fi horror-esque writer, wrote several books, very well respected and collected. This one postcard sold for 1,812 American dollars. Aha, another Titanic. So we're seeing sports, we're seeing Titanic, we're seeing antique postal cards from China. Those are 3 themes so far. This is a very cool one, and not only is it of the Titanic, but this image is woven out of silk. So this is a silk screen with a little bit of color here, and it is glued or mounted on the top of this postcard, the RMS Titanic. This one sold for a little over $1,500. Now, I know that this is a group, this is a collection of postcards, so it's not one postcard. But I wanted to bring it up to draw your attention to these images. Anytime you find a postcard that incorporates a crescent moon or a paper moon as a backdrop for photographs, real photographs of men and women and children from around 1900 up into the 20s, but usually the mid 1900 to the teens is what we're looking at. All of these, as you see, incorporate a crescent moon with some sort of face. This is called anthropomorphism, when we're assigning human characteristics to a either to an animal or a non-living object, like the moon. And this particular lot sold for almost $1,500, and this is the theme. These moons. A moon with people in the mouth, people laying or sitting on the moon, in the sky, that sort of thing. So if you ever come across one of these regularly sell for $100 or more as individual cards. Another team here. This time we're talking about football. Again, in Rhode Island, this is Brown University. It's a football team from 1916. I don't know who these players are. It might state it in the description, but nothing really spectacular going on in the shot. It's just a large group shot, but somebody wanted this. They paid $1,400. This is a highly unusual card. It is a black and white card. It's not a real photo postcard. It would probably have been derived from a photograph, but this has been reprinted. But you're looking at a woman from the early 1900s that has significant tattooing, which was highly unusual and very, very rare for that time period. Somebody paid, well, a little, less than $1,200, but still a lot of money for this card. This person has, several types of tattoos. It looks like tattoos all the way down the arm, and one large. It looks like some sort of an older boat or ship craft tattooed here on her back. Very unusual. Back to China again, 1901. It says Canton cover dragon. So we've got like a dragon on these postal. We've got stamps here. What is it about this card? It might have been some of the stamps that were unusual. It could have been some of these cancellations. But I think simply, a card from this time period from China. These things regularly bring high dollar amounts. This one, for example, just about $1,300. What we have here, another postal card from China with the dragon. If you come across one of these, you're going to be very happy. $949 with 34 bids. So there's several people wanting these types of cards. This is highly rare. This is a real photo postcard of Harriet Tubman, the very famous abolitionist female that there's very, very important person in our history, and this is a really cool photograph of her as a postcard. If I came across this card, I would not necessarily know that this was Harriet Tubman. I've seen pictures of her in the past, but I wouldn't have known. So I think there are programs out there where you can do face, like you can look at a person and pull up other photos of that same person if they're online, or especially if it ends up being a famous person, that might be worth trying out. This one sold for $900. Here's another real photo postcard. This one's by this, I guess, was the photographer Frank Matsuda. But it says Indian Captain Jim and Wife, Okanogan, Washington, from 1909. Apparently this was a U.S. government scout in 1862. He's 104 years old apparently in this photograph. Really, really interesting. And it's, definitely an old, we're talking about most likely the teens here. It says 1909. Okay, so 1909, so close to the teens. This one, it took a best offer, but likely several $100s. Here's another, what they are calling a pioneer card, and they just describe this woman as a Hawaiian belle, like a beautiful Hawaiian woman. Nothing on the back, no information, and yet this was interesting enough, and maybe not as common. We got 19 bids, $888 for that. And this is one of my favorites today. You got Babe Ruth, Hall of Famer Babe Ruth, baseball player, He's not holding his baseball bat. Instead, he's holding a rifle, and he's standing next to a giant alligator that apparently he hunted. I mean, look at his face. His face even looks like he's not quite sure about it. He's like, I'm more familiar with the baseball field, guys. But look at that. He is locked and loaded, ready to go. Wow. Hilarious. It says evidence of trimming, so this has been trimmed down from its original size. Who knows how much? But it's slabbed. It doesn't look like it's necessarily graded, per se. They're just saying this isn't authentic, and they've protected it. 53 bids, $854. This is my second favorite of the day just because of how silly it is. This is a baseball team from 1909 called the San Francisco Seals. And of course, they're on next to the ocean there. There are seals. That's how they got their name as of the team. The Seals, 1909. And yet they've superimposed, or they've essentially taken real photographs of their faces, cut them out, and then laid them over in some sort of like artistic fashion to make it look like the heads of actual seals. This sold for $850 also. Another very uncommon one. If I came across this, I probably wouldn't buy it, to be honest with you. And the reason is I come across postcards like this all the time. People sitting in a studio, standing or sitting in a chair. Sometimes the table's there, sometimes they're holding something, sometimes they're not. But why did this particular card sell for hundreds of dollars? We don't know exactly how much. Well, it's because this is a man named Manfred von Richthofen, otherwise known as the Red Baron. The Red Baron was a German pilot in World War I who was credited with something like 80 different, what you would call it. I don't want to say. He downed that many planes, or he shot down that many planes. He was feared, respected, whatever you want to call it, depending on the side that you were on. But he's one of the most famous, certainly most famous military aviators in history. And this is a postcard of him just sitting and posing. He was shot down in the late teens, like maybe 1918, something like that, and died. He had no wife, he had no children. He just has there's just the history of what he had done. But here is, a surviving postcard. This sold for not exactly $800, but definitely several $100s. Last up, we have another one of these, what they call a pioneer card. And I guess it's because you have a card, the front has a large blank space, and then just sort of like a black and white section on one end. And this is for a high school in Honolulu. Again, not a whole lot on the back, if anything. It's just of a school. This still sold for $793 with 19 bids. So going back through this, folks, if you can come across old postcards that are out of China, if you come across silly or odd or unusual postcards that are signed or written by famous people, cards that incorporate sports or interesting sports scenes or famous sports players from the early 1900s, or anything with the Titanic or famous events during that time period in postcard form, they could potentially sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Well, I hope that helped, folks. Be on the lookout for this kind of thing. You might have something like this at your home. These are all postcards that have sold in the last 90 days on eBay. And these aren't even necessarily the most valuable. I was trying to give you a different, groupings or types of postcards. But keep a lookout. These things are out there. Take care.